When do Star Wars kids all talk the same too? They all sound like Splash.
It's just the most boring autistic shit. Like I just talk, I just want to talk like a normal human being.
We can talk like a normal human being, true.
Anyway, Midtop, what were you saying? Oh, the canon point with the translations, right? So I think that if we're talking about what is canon, right, we usually mean like the official mainline.
No.
We don't mean that.
No, I think that when we're talking about canon, we're talking about the original source material that was actually made by Kishimoto. So, like, something could be official and not canon. Like, for example, Dragon Ball GT, the movies, etc.
Well, it would be canon to itself, right?
Okay, but it be canon to the original source, no.
Okay, but then okay. So then, would you not even say that any translated source would not be canon then? Because it's inherently different. Because he never wrote Dragon Ball in English, right? So it's just inherently not canon, correct?
So when we talk about canon, obviously the canon for Naruto would be Japanese. So when we translate that source, right, we get that source and we try to like bring it in English and we try to like get the best, accurate, most translation possible. But if that translation is wrong, no matter if it's official or not, it's gonna be wrong to the original source, which is what I'm saying.
Okay, I understand that, right? But no matter what you do, if your sources, but the problem is, you understand that Kishimoto isn't like the sole proprietor of Naruto, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't really know, so I'm not going to say yeah, actually.
Well, okay, so the way that things like manga work, if anyone else knows more, but based on what I know from comics, you have the writer, you usually have a few other people working with the writer, but then you also have like an editor, right?
Yeah.
So things have to go through.
Mangakas usually have assistants; they don't have like a creative team. But yeah, you're right so far.
So you'd have that. You'd have your editor, right? And then your editor, and you'd have your publisher and everything, right? Just because you're the writer does not mean you're the sole proprietor of something. If I like, let's say I wrote something and I like sold it to you, then I am the sole proprietor. But the company of what the fuck is the company? Shueisha? Is it Shueisha? There's whichever company owns the IP is usually what we're going off canon based off, right? And if the company owns the IP and then they say, okay, here's the Spanish, here's the French, here's the English, right? They are saying that these are the canon versions in these languages, even if it is different from the original source.
I feel like that's where we disagree, because if we establish the canon is the original source, then it doesn't matter, and we establish that officiality doesn't make it like canon or whatever necessarily, then we can't say that, right?
Yeah, but I don't agree with that. I don't think the original source is canon. I usually go canon based off like who owns the IP or shit like that, right? Okay. And then they would choose what the canon is. Okay. And then we would go based off that, right?
Okay, well, because you own the IP and not be a part of the actual story, like Dragon Ball GT, for example, you know?
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I'm saying they can have different canons, right? For example, they could put out a chapter and say, this is a non-canonical chapter, and it's a chapter of Superman fighting Goku. That is officially released work, but it would be, what do they consider canon? And I would say that the fact that they have an official English release translation, that is what we should be going with, even if that is incorrect. Because I think this would be the same in comics, right? Comics are originally written in English, and then they get translated over to different languages. But DC still releases those comics, like, for example, in Spanish, for example, right? And they're still their official public works.
True. I don't really care for what... You could go. You could finish.
No, that's what I was saying.
Okay, so I don't really care what these English translators have to say. I only care about the original source material, because that's what Kishimoto and his assistants wrote. That's the original shit. So if whatever's right from that original shit is what I'm going to use. And I think that that's what we should all use, because like it's just random people just, writing the shit down. And just because it's official doesn't mean that it's right or true to the original source material. Well, it's definitely not equal to it. So,
but then, hold on. If you okay? The fuck is dying in the background? Okay. Anyway, so what you said about Kishimoto. Okay, but then I guess we have different definitions of what we consider canon then, because the problem with things like that is, I'm not. Do you know much about Star Wars? So, because for the most part, George Lucas literally only thinks his 6 movies and Clone Wars are canon. that's all he has in mind. That's what he thinks Star Wars is. Like, no comics, no novels, no nothing. Right? But then if I was to say, let's argue let's say we want to do Revan versus Vader or something, right? And then you say, well, Vader's a canon character and Revan is not part of the canon because that's not the original intent of the author. Then, like, what would your response be to that, right? Like, because the original, like, he never had Revan in mind. Revan is not canon to him, and he's explicitly said he only thinks his 6 movies and Clone Wars are canon. So what can you say to that then?
Well, this I don't really think that this really has relevance that whether a translation is right, but I would say that if as long as it's like a part of the official story or whatever, like it's a continuation, like the people who actually like own Star Wars, not just own copyright of Star Wars, but actually own Star Wars itself, says, okay, this is a continuation.
Well, I mean, the copyright is so then you would say that because Lucasfilm, the company, allowed them to make KOTOR, you would say KOTOR is canon then.
It depends. If it's not like an official continuation of the story, then no.
Wait, but because what I'm trying to get a distinction between is the author and the author and the company. Because, for example, again, Lucas, the creator and the owner, says 6 movies, Clone Wars, that's all that's canon. None of the games, nothing, right? But Lucasfilm, the company, said that there's the extended universe, which has the novels, the comics, the games, right? And then you had Disney come in and say, those aren't canon except for these specific things, and then we're going to have our new canon with the new movies and stuff, right? So then, do we say that the only canon thing is what George Lucas said? Or do we say the canon thing is what the company at the time said? So, okay, Lucasfilm in the past, and then Disney now? Because that's what I'm trying to get. What do we say Lucas is more important? Because if Lucas is more important, then nothing is canon to Star Wars except for 6 movies and 6 seasons. But if we say the companies at the time, then it would be EU and Disney, right?
Okay.
Which one do you think is more important between those two things?
I feel as if like whoever like owns the actual Star Wars says that, okay, this is a continuation, then yeah, it would be a continuation. But I feel like that there's like a distinction there. What we're saying is that we have 2 completely different stories here. So let's just take an anime and a manga, for example. We wouldn't say, okay, well, the manga's the original source, and then we have an anime. Yeah, sure, the anime gets clearance to do this, but we wouldn't say, okay, the anime is like the ultimate source over the manga. You know what I'm saying?
But don't they consider the anime to be a different canon? From what I don't know. I'm asking that. I'm asking that question. Do they?
At least Noodles does. I'm sure Hapi does too.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm just wondering about the authors in general. What is it? Shueisha?
I don't know.
To answer your question, True, it's depends on the people.
Right. Okay. So there's no
like Dragon Ball does consider it, but like One Piece doesn't.
Oh yeah, Dragon Ball is explicitly different, isn't it? Yeah.
It depends on the series. Just want to
there's clear differences. Like let's just say inside the
material. It's not even about that Midtop. It's not about in Japan manga, not just like in terms of like financially, but culturally, it's like a huge deal. Like you need a manga, and so for like Dragon Ball Super, the manga is promotional. But for Naruto, the manga is like the source material that the anime is like adapting.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So we wouldn't consider the manga to be, the anime to be above the manga or even equal to it.
I would say it's a different canon, though, right? Because the problem is
canon. Whatever the original source is, I think that's what we should look at rather than an adaptation to it.
But the problem is you're adapting, right?
Yes, I am adapting, but it's going to be a better adaptation than something that's wrong.
But why? But why is your adaptation better than the official released source?
Well, I'm not necessarily better, but it can be better because it can translate better.
Because I'm saying that even if, for example, even if they explicitly, even explicit mistakes, I think are canon. For example, let's say for some reason the next Superman comic comes out, right, and then they have Superman saying the N-word in it, right? Now they might. Until they go back and say, oh, that was not Superman, or like they say, okay, this issue's been pulled out of continuity, right? Until that happens explicitly, Superman just said it, right? Even if that was a mistake and they meant to say, he wanted to write, I don't know,
Wait, I have a
numpty.
question. I have a question real quick.
Yep.
What is a canon to? Is it canon to the source material or the original source material, or is it canon to itself?
Well, I think it'd be canon to the source material. Well,
Okay, no.
my bad.
Okay, no.
Okay, my bad. No, because I misunderstood that.
What
Because
if the original
comics are
source?
different. Sorry, go on.
Okay, what if the original source material says one thing and then the translation says two different things? Which one do we take?
Okay, but then we would take whichever one we're arguing about, right? Because then your argument here, which might be the correct argument, right? The original Japanese is different. As soon as you translate that Japanese to anything else, it's a different canon. So then the official translation would be a different canon, and then the fan translation would also be a different canon. But then the problem is, why? No, because here's the thing. Why would let's say I'm just a nobody, right? I just read Naruto. I don't know about fan translations or anything. I don't have to agree to argue based on your canon, right? Because we can choose what we as fans can also choose what we believe canon is, right? We have some perspective because we can argue, is this canon? Because sometimes people argue manga and anime together as canon, right? We can have those arguments. So then I'm saying that what you're proposing here is official source material, official English translation, then fan English translation, right?
No, what I'm saying is that so how a translation works is it takes the original source material and it lets another language, read it based off of that. So what I'm saying is that what that original source material says should be correct, and we should take that translation no matter if it's official or not. It doesn't matter where it comes from. It's a generic fallacy if you say it's good if it comes from the official translation and it's bad if it comes from the fan translation,
But do you think a one-to-one translation is different than a original translation?
Wait, sorry. Repeat that question.
Do you think a one-to-one translation is different from it's a different continuity from the original source material?
What do you mean?
Because the problem is obviously different languages have because for example, different languages have different terms of phrases, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a term of phrase might just not make sense in another language whatsoever. Right, so let's say they change that term of phrase to be something.
Can you give me an example of that?
I don't know what
you're talking about, bro.
So have you ever heard the term? It's raining cats and dogs.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty widely used. Well, okay, it's not that widely used anymore, but everyone knows what it means nowadays, right? But let's say in Japan, that term they've never heard of that. It's raining cats to dogs, right? So then let's say they change that to something that would be more relevant to the people in Japan. Would that not be a new continuity because the characters are saying different words?
Would it be a different continuity? I just don't think so, no. Because, I guess you could say that it's canon in and of itself. I don't really care for the canon in and of itself because it's different from what the original says.
Okay, but then if it's... Okay, so then you're only allowing one-to-one translations, right?
No, I'm allowing whatever original source says inside of our language.
Yeah. So my bad. That's when I say one-to-one translation, just the words to the words, right? No, but you can't have translation.
Phrase, right? It could be a phrase to a phrase.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's what I meant. But the problem with this, you can't translate. Most languages don't translate nicely, especially things like Arabic, things like Japanese, or whatever fucking language is the Japanese,
yes,
right?
No.
They don't translate one-to-one, so you have to change things, right?
No,
there's no. Yes.
The thing is about this, True, is that I'm saying that if it's wrong, sure, okay, if it doesn't translate 100%, sure. If it's dead wrong, if they can't translate konnichiwa to bye or something like that, that's wrong. I'm going to use a translation that says konnichiwa means hi inside Naruto, you know what I mean?
Right, I understand what you mean, right? But the problem is, I think even if something is wrong, that doesn't change its canonicity.
Okay, but which one should you take? Did you take the original source, or should you just take the random wrong translation to the original source?
I can't read the original source.
Sorry, what?
I can't. None of us can read the original source, right?
Okay, so you can.
I'm going off the only source I can go off, which would be the original English source.
Okay, but what if you can go off the raw now? What if you have the ability to do that?
Well, I can't translate. I can't read Japanese. I don't.
Okay, but
I don't have
people that can.
But why would we trust randos? What if they're just lying to you?
What if they use
no.
That
was a bad argument. You can ignore that. That was a bad argument. But the problem with that is I just believe that we should just go off the easiest way to do it is because two different people can have two different translations, right?
Okay, I think you just committed a fallacy. Just because it's easier doesn't mean that it's better.
No,
I
that's not what
don't
I'm
know
saying.
what that fallacy is called, but I know it's a fallacy.
Is everybody in here like a fallacy? Is everybody in here like a fallacy user? Can we just like talk normally? Like,
brother, I didn't. I just said that was a fallacy. That was like a a fallacy.
yeah,
Just
I
need the
understand.
logic.
Oh,
I'm
like
just saying that
you
the
don't
logic
need
is
to
bad.
do that. That stuff is so weird.
I'm just saying that the logic is bad. That's what fallacy means.
I understand, right? Just yeah. Listen, I guess we just have different opinions because again, I just believe that the released work, whether it's wrong or not, is the canon because that's what the company puts out, and like they would put things out based off that, right? For example, let's say they translate world to universe, right? And then every single time that they use that, every single time that they use that, it is like let's say that you start using that in like guidebooks and things, even if it's wrong. Well, then the English guidebooks just simply say world, and I think that you would argue that they would just have two different scaling. But I mean, at the end of the day, we just disagree on what's canon and not.
Disagree to disagree.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay, well, have a good day.
Peace.